How to calculate the penalty for late IRS tax payments. Nobody likes paying their income taxes, but if you're late, the IRS has a way of making it hurt even more. It's called penalties and interest. Imagine you're buried in tax debt. You think there's no way you'll ever be able to dig out of it. Then on top of that, the IRS is going to penalize you for not paying on time. And on top of that, they're going to charge you interest. You can't see your way out of this mess, but if you only knew, the answers are out there. To start with, you need to understand how much you're on the hook for. In a minute we'll look at the drop-dead easiest way to calculate your penalties and interest for late taxes, but first let's look at a couple scenarios. Scenario 1, imagine Brad Pitt is planning to pay his taxes. Actually, he has people for that. But, anyway, his money is all tied up in an investment, so Brad realizes he's not going to make the tax deadline. Imagine he owes $1 million in taxes, and he's going to be 2 months late. The IRS says he owes them 0.5% of taxes owed as a failure to pay penalty for each month he's late. But, if Brad doesn't file his taxes, whether he pays or not, the IRS will drop a 5% failure to file penalty on him per month, until he pays. So, how much will Brad have to pay if he waits 2 months to file? If both penalties are in effect, the IRS will only charge 5% per month. Not 5.5%. To calculate 5%, divide by 10. Then divide by 2. So, $1 million divided by 10 is $100,000. And $100,000 divided by 2 is $50,000. Brad's penalty for late tax payment is $50,000 per month. So, for being 2 months late with his taxes, Brad will owe the IRS $100,000 in penalties. But, what about his interest payments? The current interest rate for individuals, for the first quarter of 2023, is 7%, compounded daily. You don't want to know how the IRS decides on what interest rate to charge, just understand that it can change over time, depending on the calendar quarter. 7% of $1 million is $70,000 per year. For 2 months, with daily compounding, the interest payments would be $10,392. So, for this example, Brad Pitt owes the IRS $1 million in taxes plus $110,392 in penalties and interest. No big deal. Right? Brad probably spends that much on Cuban cigars. Now let's look at scenario 2. Sally is a self-employed graphic artist. She's also planning to pay her taxes. And no, she doesn't have people for that. Sally owes $40,000 in taxes. If she's 2 months late, the IRS is going to want an extra $4,000 in penalties. Plus $416 in compounded interest. If Sally delays even longer, the IRS can charge her up to $10,000 in late penalties. But, Sally is late on her taxes because she was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and she had to use part of her savings to live off of, and pay her insurance deductible. Plus, she didn't earn any money at all during those 2 weeks in the hospital. So now Sally doesn't have enough to pay her taxes. But, because she has a reasonable excuse for not paying on time, she can appeal to the IRS. If the IRS agrees, then Sally won't have to pay her tax penalties or interest. Now, as promised, here's the drop-dead easiest way to calculate the penalties and interest on your late taxes. Just go to irscalculators.com. Fill in your tax information. And, voila, instant calculation. Don't let the IRS treat you like a mushroom. Don't let them feed you bullshit and keep you in the dark. In our other videos, our biggest takeaway is how important it is to get dependable answers to your tax questions. Even if you don't know all the right questions to ask. Talking with a tax expert can help you figure out how to get out of trouble with the IRS, even if you're in big trouble. And how to stay out of trouble.
To get help with your IRS tax problems and tax questions, please talk to a qualified tax expert. You can work with a CPA, or other tax professional, where you live. Or, if you'd like to get answers to your questions quickly, about your own taxes, you can chat online now with a qualified tax expert. Just click on the link in the comments below this video.